Have you ever started crying suddenly without knowing why? One moment you are completely fine, watching a movie or sitting at your desk, and the next moment tears start falling down your face. You are not thinking about anything sad. Nothing bad happened. But there you are crying, and you have no idea where it came from. It feels random and confusing. Maybe you felt embarrassed or wondered if something was wrong with you. But here's what you need to know. According to psychology and neuroscience, sudden crying almost never happens without a reason. There's always something happening beneath the surface, in your brain, in your body, in your emotions. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why tears come out of nowhere and what your brain is actually trying to tell you when it happens. Let me start by explaining what crying actually is, because most people think it is just an emotional reaction. But crying is so much more than that. It is actually a biological and psychological response that involves your entire nervous system. Your brain, your hormones, and your emotions work together to trigger tears. And sometimes the reasons are hidden so deep in your subconscious mind that you are not consciously aware of what is causing the tears. Your conscious mind is confused, asking why am I crying, but your unconscious mind knows exactly why. So let me walk you through what is really happening. One of the most common reasons for sudden crying is emotional overload. Your brain processes thousands of emotional signals every single day. Stress from work, frustration from daily hassles, sadness from things you see or hear, pressure from responsibilities, worry about the future. All of these emotions are being registered by your brain constantly, and most of the time you are not fully processing them. You are just moving through your day, pushing feelings aside, telling yourself you will deal with it later, staying busy so you do not have to feel. But here is what happens. Those emotions do not disappear. They accumulate. They build up in your nervous system like pressure in a container. And when the emotional load becomes too heavy, when your brain reaches capacity, it needs to release that pressure. And crying is how it does that. It is like a safety valve for emotions. Your tears are not random. They are your brain saying, I cannot hold this anymore. I need to let some of this out. And this connects directly to suppressed emotions, which is another major cause of sudden crying. Many people, especially those who are taught that crying is weakness or that they need to stay strong, learn to ignore or suppress their feelings. They keep working, they keep smiling, they keep acting normal even when things are hard. They push down sadness, they deny hurt, they refuse to acknowledge fear or grief or anger. But emotions do not disappear when you ignore them. They stay inside your mind and body. They get stored in your nervous system. And they slowly accumulate over time. Eventually, a small trigger, something that seems completely insignificant, can cause those hidden emotions to explode to the surface as tears. You might cry during a commercial, or because someone asked if you are okay, or because you dropped something. The trigger is small, but what is actually happening is that all those suppressed emotions have finally found a release point. You are not crying about the commercial. You are crying about everything you have been holding in. Sometimes, sudden crying is caused by memory triggers, and this is fascinating from a neuroscience perspective. Your brain stores emotional memories, and these memories can be activated by sensory cues. Sometimes a smell, a song, or a random thought can bring back powerful memories that you are not even consciously thinking about. These memories activate emotional centers in your brain, particularly the amygdala and the hippocampus. Even if you are not thinking about the past at all, your brain suddenly relives the emotion associated with that memory. And tears come before you even understand what is happening. This is why hearing an old song can make you cry, or why seeing an old photo triggers tears. Or why visiting a familiar place from your childhood can bring unexpected emotion. Your conscious mind is caught off guard, but your emotional memory system has been activated. Now let me explain the brain science behind crying, because understanding this helps you see that tears are not weakness or loss of control. They are your brain doing exactly what it is designed to do. There are three main brain structures involved in crying. The amygdala detects emotional intensity and stress. It is your emotional alarm system. When something is emotionally significant, the amygdala responds. The hypothalamus controls emotional reactions and body responses. It is the part of your brain that actually triggers the physical act of crying, sending signals to your tear ducts and facial muscles. And the prefrontal cortex helps regulate emotions and logical thinking. It is supposed to keep your emotions in check. When they overwhelm the regulatory capacity of your prefrontal cortex, these systems trigger crying as a release mechanism. Crying is not a malfunction. It is your brain restoring emotional balance. But it is not just your brain. Hormonal changes also play a massive role in sudden crying. Hormones strongly influence emotional stability, and when these hormones fluctuate, you can suddenly feel emotional and start crying for what seems like no reason. Important hormones include cortisol, which is your stress hormone. When cortisol is elevated from chronic stress, you are more emotionally reactive. Oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, is released during emotional moments and can trigger tears. Prolactin, which is linked to tear production, increases when you cry and is higher in women than men, which partly explains why women cry more frequently on average. And serotonin, your mood stabilizer, when low can make you more vulnerable to emotional overwhelm. When these hormones fluctuate due to stress, menstrual cycles, sleep deprivation, or other factors, people can suddenly feel emotional and start crying. And speaking of physical factors, sometimes the reason for sudden crying is not emotional at all. It is physical. Your body and brain are connected. And when your body is struggling, your emotional regulation suffers. Common physical causes include lack of sleep, which impairs your prefrontal cortex and makes you emotionally reactive. Hunger or low blood sugar, which affects brain function and mood stability. Exhaustion from overwork or lack of rest. And long-term stress, which keeps your nervous system in a state of high alert. When the body is tired, when it is depleted, the brain loses its ability to regulate emotions properly. This is why you might cry more easily when you are exhausted, or why everything feels overwhelming when you have not slept enough. It is not that you are weak. It is that your regulatory systems are offline. For some people, sudden crying can also be linked to mental health conditions. Depression, anxiety, burnout, and emotional exhaustion all can cause tears that seem to appear without clear triggers. In these situations, the crying is often a symptom of underlying emotional distress that needs professional attention. If you find yourself crying frequently without understanding why, it might be worth talking to a therapist or a counselor, who can help you explore what is going on beneath the surface. But here is something really interesting from an evolutionary perspective. Crying serves important social functions that helped our ancestors survive. Crying signals distress and asks for help without words. It communicates emotions when language fails. It strengthens emotional bonds between people by creating empathy and connection. And here is a fascinating fact. Humans are the only species known to produce emotional tears. Other animals might produce tears to lubricate their eyes, but only humans cry because of emotions. This suggests that emotional crying evolved specifically for social communication and bonding. And there are actually 3 types of tears. Basal tears keep your eyes lubricated constantly. Reflex tears are caused by irritation like onions or dust in your eye, and emotional tears are triggered by strong feelings. When you cry emotionally, you are literally releasing stress chemicals from your body. This is why studies show that crying can reduce stress, and why people often feel relief or emotional release after crying. Your tears are detoxifying your system. So let me bring this all together. Sudden crying is not weakness. It is not you being dramatic or overly sensitive or unable to handle life. It is a natural emotional and biological response. Your brain uses tears to release emotional pressure and restore balance. Whether it is suppressed emotions finally surfacing, memories being triggered, hormones fluctuating, or your body being exhausted, there is always a reason. And understanding why it happens can help you be more compassionate with yourself and better understand your emotions. The next time tears come out of nowhere, Instead of feeling confused or ashamed, you can recognize that your brain and body are communicating with you, asking you to pay attention, to process, to release, to rest. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.